big is this problem? And your direct engagement with clerics that fuel this hate speech, what did it teach you?
Well, I think it's a huge problem, and because a lot of this is being articulated in Arabic, it's difficult for people in the U.S. to understand the magnitude.
Right.
So, and the reason I went to Twitter is that I was trying to, everyone always asked, well, how do you know that this, anti-Shia sentiment exists? How can you prove it, right? So I thought, well, okay, Twitter seems like a good way to try to figure out the anti-Shia sentiment. And as you saw, I mean, the tweets are so graphic, that they're going to grind the flesh of the Shia. And I mean, the things that are said are just horrific. But to your point about, is it important? I think it's hugely important. Because if you look, I mean, some of the people I profile in this book have 14 million Twitter followers. So even though in terms of methodology, and I'm about the last person to be analyzing the technicalities of social media, but I looked at it more from a substantive point of view. And even if you can't scientifically evaluate the penetration of these messages, okay, who's following them? How does that affect what happens on the ground? I attempted to do that, you can't really decide, okay, someone's tweeting about the Battle of Qusair. Mm-hmm. How did that affect what happened on the ground? I mean, it's difficult to know. But if someone has 14 million Twitter followers, you have to assume that somebody is absorbing this material. And so I think, it's massive. I mean, if you have millions of followers, and I think the other thing that's dangerous about it is that it's reinforced by different forms of media, right?
Not the mainstream media, but
right.
it does marginalize, people like me, like. Even Al Jazeera, Al Arabiya, and others were trying. Speaking of fake news here, everyone is throwing a fit. I mean, we've had it in the Arab world for a long time now, and I don't know how you address it. I mean, when you tell these clerics, when you tell these extremists, when you read them these tweets, what's the
Well, as we were talking about this earlier today, but what I thought was interesting, so I didn't really have access to the Saudis, so I just followed them on Twitter. But I did have access to Salafists in other countries, so I went to northern Lebanon, to the Tripoli area, where they all are. And I started reading back to them their tweets that they had tweeted in Arabic. And at least 3 Salafists said, I didn't tweet that, somebody else did. And so what's interesting, and we can, in another conversation, get into the sort of the power of the internet and social media, but because I think it encourages people to be more aggressive than they would be normally, and to create more hostility. But they were trying to convince me that they didn't tweet that. And so, we start, and then finally, it was one particular Salafist I said, okay, so if you didn't tweet this, just answer a question. Do you think the Shia are real Muslims? And he said no. So, if you sort of, I think that the danger of Twitter, in addition to a lot of other dangers, is that it gives people the license to be much more aggressive. And if they had to confront to strangers like me or to anybody else outside of their communities what they were really saying, they want to retract it. Mm-hmm. But once it's out there,
well, I'm glad you're out of that meeting safe and sound.